Hi. Sorry, I'm late. I had said you were waiting, and I was like, I think I'm in here. But anyway, technical difficulties.
Yes, I just had to close Zoom and open it back up and it let me in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I had the enable waiting. Whatever. I still am learning.
No worries at all. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
No complaints, I'm just writing a lot. I'm a freelance writer, as I said in my email to you, and work has been picking up, which is a good thing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So you're writing about some interesting stuff, or?
Yeah. I just had my first piece published with Billboard on Tuesday. I
Oh,
interviewed, yeah, thank you. I interviewed these artists named Chloe and Halle. They're Beyonce's proteges.
okay.
So they were very, very sweet, very lovely, and we just talked about their album. And yeah, so that's I kind of have a combination of either I do writing about, like, I interview artists or write about their work, or
Mhm.
like I have a side project right now where I'm writing bios about like a major streaming service. Like when you click into their album or their discography, you can see like the bio at the very top. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Okay, that's cool. I'm a big music fan, and I'm getting a little more diverse in my music. My son, who is 20, is helping me learn some new people. So yeah, so it's good. I'm kind of old because I'm actually 49, so I'm kind of old school. I love a lot of singer songwriter, kind of acoustic, that kind of stuff. But well, in the 80s, I grew up with all kinds of classic rock and all that kind of stuff. But he's introducing me to more like hip hop type of stuff and emo rap and things that
Oh,
I'm just
nice.
yeah he's yeah, so he was actually like he introduced me to Juice World, which of course,
Mm,
that was of course a sad situation there. And
mhm.
but yeah, so interesting with that. And yeah, so it's just good. And Khalid, so I was listening a little bit to Khalid, so I'm
Yeah.
expanding my horizons a little bit.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Khalid is from Texas. I'm from
Oh, is he
Texas.
really?
Yeah, he's from
Okay.
El
Yeah.
Paso. Yeah.
Yeah. And Brene Brown's from Texas too. Do you know
Oh,
Brene
is she?
Brown?
I
Yeah.
I went through your website and I was trying to like watch as many resources as I could, and I saw the segment that she did with Oprah, but I didn't get a chance to watch her TED Talk.
Okay. Yeah. Her TED Talk is fabulous. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's very, very powerful. When I was teaching at Widener in the social work program, I would actually play I want to say it's like 17 or maybe 20 minutes. It's pretty short. And I used to play it for my graduate students who were becoming therapists to help them understand, how hard it is for people to open up. And
Hmm.
yeah, so it's very powerful. Yeah. But thank you for looking at all the stuff on my website. That's really, really, I mean, I feel so touched by that. It's amazing. It's funny when I look back, I'm like, I can't believe how much work I've done. There's really a lot there. So yeah. So thank you for appreciating it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. It was very helpful for me. I'm someone who has been, and we'll get into this in a second, but I had my first episode in 2016, and ever since then I've been like, what was that? Like, how can I learn more about this?
Yeah.
And so like I've some of the resources I had come across before, like Bipolar or Waking Up, but yeah, there were like quite a few things that I hadn't seen yet. Like there's one research paper that I haven't gotten into yet. I think it's called Psychosis or Spiritual Awakening, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like on my to-do list of things
Okay.
to
Yeah.
read. But yeah, it was very, very helpful. So yeah, thank you for putting all that together.
Yeah, that's good. And so I don't mean to be too personal, but so how are you doing now? Are you feeling better now? Are you kind of struggling still or?
That's a great question. I have, days where sometimes I'm on the more depressive end, and then
Hmm.
sometimes I'm a little bit on the hypomanic end, but I
Hmm.
am on medication and I take it every day. And
Hmm.
sometimes it like creeps through, up or down. It just is
Hmm.
what it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm in a much better place than I was even like 4 months ago. I was
Okay.
hospitalized in October of last year for an episode. I've had four long-term, like 2 to 5 week stays in hospitals
Yeah.
over the past 4 years, and I had two last year. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely very, very. I'm trying to get a grip on it. I moved
Mm-hmm.
home to Texas so I could be with my family,
Mm-hmm.
so they could kind of help me like stay on top of it, because I was in New York and I was just flitting around doing whatever I wanted to do, not
Mm-hmm.
really worried about medication, just trying to be normal. And
Yeah.
it didn't bode well. So
Yeah.
yeah, at this point I'm home. I've been home for about 8 months. I'm living with my sister, who's very gracious. And yeah, at this point I'm just trying to drill it into my own head that I do need to take these meds, because if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, then I end up, going up and up and up and up, which is like fun for me. But,
Mm-hmm.
when I go too far up, then I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where I am. I don't know who I am anymore. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
am I God himself? Am I me? Like, like I get
Mm-hmm.
very, very up there. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just, had to come to terms with the fact that I do need meds.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very, very religiously taking them now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that's helping you. For me, it was definitely, I was on meds for and I still am, but I'm actually seeing a holistic psychiatrist now whose name is Dr. Alice Lee.
Hmm.
And she is helping me taper off of my medication, but she's helping me address like the biochemistry in my body and doing energy medicine to help me heal. And I have done a lot of trauma processing. So like before, there's definitely no way I could have done this, but I'm in a different place now,
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, the meds were definitely very helpful for me when I was transitioning and trying to figure out what, like you said, kind of figuring out what can I swear, what the hell is
Yes,
going on
please.
here?
Yeah.
I was definitely going, because like you said, you think, like for me, I thought I was Jesus. I thought I was the second coming of Christ.
Me
And
too.
yeah. And so what I've learned, and Emma Bragdon helped me with this. She is I don't know if you saw her on my website, but
Yeah.
she has done a lot of writing about spiritual emergence. And I had some sessions with her, and she explained to me that it's actually, when people think that, they're connecting with the Christ consciousness, which is this idea that we all have like a piece of Christ within us. And it's sort of like that, like Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, this kind of, and when we, for me, I don't want to say for anybody else, but when I had my episodes, sort of the ego breaks down and you're able to connect with that consciousness, but because your energy is sort of blended, you think it's your own, even though
Mhm.
it's not exactly, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I know when she told me that, I remember thinking, but that's not true. I'm really Jesus, like this isn't just a consciousness. This is who I am, And so like it almost was a little bit um like I'm like, she just doesn't believe me. But now that I can look back on it with a clearer perspective, I feel like she was absolutely right, that I was just connecting with this energy and this consciousness that gave me a lot of insight, which was helpful. But also because I wasn't able to control the energy that was coming in, that's what kind of elevated
Mhm.
me and made me manic. And
Mhm.
I've since learned, ways to kind of help protect my energy, and do some other things to help me. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm glad that you were open right off the bat about thinking that you're the second coming, because I, also felt that way. At one point I thought, I thought that I was, the reincarnation of Jesus. And then
Mm-hmm.
at another point I was like, let me scale back. I'm just the Jesus of Texas, and I tried
Mm-hmm.
to like, make it work for me. But
Mm-hmm.
so can you kind of explain to me what specifically made you think that you were the second coming? Like, what were you feeling?
Um, so I felt like I was here to save the world. Um, and I felt like I had messages to share, um, which is kind of interesting because in some ways, like part of what I was feeling was true, in the sense that like I've since written this book that has channeled messages. So I was intended to share some messages, but I was definitely, confused and thinking that I was Christ, or again, I also had thought I was the reincarnation of Christ, or I had been
Mhm,
Christ in a past life and all this kind of stuff. So I think for me, it was, I think part of what I was thinking and feeling was true. Like some of the kind of purpose and mission stuff that was kind of intertwined with my episodes has sort of come to fruition. But again, there was a lot of confusion, you know, just not really understanding what was happening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So around, let me backtrack. How many times have you experienced this feeling?
So I was initially hospitalized in 2007, and I was in the hospital for 6 days, and then I was in outpatient treatment for 3 weeks after that, like intensive outpatient, like all day. That was pretty extreme. I didn't sleep for 3 days,
Mm.
and was terrified. And that's actually, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I had a lot of fear. That's actually what, so the mania part wasn't as bad. I mean, of course, I wasn't sleeping, which my husband, you know, I was keeping everybody else up, which was crazy. But the hard part was that I would start to be afraid. And my fear was that my son was going to die. And
Mm.
so, and that something that I was going to do was going to cause my son to die. And so that fear made me do some, you know, some things that, you know, I won't get into, but just that you know, that just were not good. And what I realize now is that, and I'm getting a little off track and I'll get back to that, but what I realize now is that was my trauma. I had a childhood traumatic experience, which I've written about in my book. I don't think it's on the website. Um, but that was triggered. That trauma experience was triggered, and that's what was causing all my fears. But because actually I had repressed the experience, I didn't remember it. And then I started having kind of flashbacks of it, and that's when I realized that it was like a traumatic trigger that was causing me to have these excessive fears. So anyway, so that was in 2007. And then I was hospitalized again in 2011. And I don't really remember a specific trigger with that. But I remember it was around Thanksgiving. And again, I was not sleeping for days. Again, afraid my son was going to die. And so, yeah, so I was hospitalized again then. And then in 2017, I was not hospitalized, but I had gone on a spiritual retreat.
Mhm.
And it was about guides and angels. This is when I really started to learn about the spirit world a little bit more. And so it was kind of triggering for me. And I mean, in a good way, because I felt like I was starting to understand things a little bit better, but at the same time, like I also still had these fears. And so I did take a leave of absence from work for like maybe 6 weeks, but I just went to see a regular, actually at that point, I think I went to see a transpersonal psychologist type of person, somebody who was more of a spiritual therapist. And so she was kind of helping me work through things. So that was in 2000 in the fall, and yeah, around Thanksgiving. And then actually, I just found the paper. It was December of 2017 that she got together a group of us who had similar experiences. One person, it was just a small group. One person was diagnosed with bipolar, and the other person with I think severe anxiety, social anxiety. And she did a group where we started the purpose was to help us connect safely with the unseen realms, because she felt like we were sensitives and we were picking up on this energy that we just didn't know how to process.
Mhm.
And so we had these kind of support groups, and we would kind of practice connecting with kind of spirits. And I'm not remembering all the specific but just kind of going into meditation and feeling like we could connect with the spirit realms. And that was sort of my first foray into, making those connections. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so some of these questions, like I don't know if I mentioned this, but I've written like my most recent article that I've written about this kind of experience was published in like late May, and I interviewed probably about a dozen people, but I only was able to get like 6 of them into this piece, and I just talked to them about like, like general, like how long were you manic, what happened after you were manic, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of want to do something different with you, just because I feel like those individuals were more so like still figuring out what happened, and it seems
Mm-hmm.
like you're kind of beyond that point. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll just ask you, let's see, skip that. So yeah, you I've read the excerpt that you sent me. Thank you for that.
Sure.
A question that I've asked the other people that I do want to ask you is, what's your theory about what's happening when we are connecting to this? As you said, heaven is an energetic frequency of love with which you connect. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is happening when we connect to that frequency?
So I'm going to base it on the channeling of my book because I think a couple things are happening. I think that we are supposed to be our true selves. Like we're trying to, like right now, most humans are protected by their ego, which is that part of us, that mask that we wear that keeps us from showing who we truly are to the people that we're surrounded by, whether it's people we know or acquaintances or whatever. We're sort of afraid to reveal who we truly are because we've been injured or wounded or hurt. And what I understand is that God and the angels and the spirit beings want us to be our true selves. And so it's a process of unfolding and overcoming fears, which can be really challenging. But the whole point is that's sort of half of it. Maybe 80% of it is that we need to be who we truly are. And that is, and the idea is that there's the spark of God, the light of the divine within each one of us. And God wants us to bring that light into the earth. And so we do that by being our true selves and shining our light. And so that's part of it. And then the other part of it is we all do sort of have a mission and a purpose. So not only it's being who we are, which that's again a bigger part of it, is just being, our funny, our sensitive selves, sharing our interests, our joys, our passions, our feelings, all of that is part of being who we truly are. But then the other part is we each have a sort of a mission and a purpose to fulfill. And I think sometimes with the mania, that's where it comes in, is because I think people are tapping into their mission and purpose.
Mhm.
It's that they're not able to sort of, they're not grounded. Like there's so much in the etheric realms that it's like they're forcing it, kind of.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Whereas if you practice techniques like, one of the things I learned is if you practice techniques like grounding, things like, this sounds kind of a little woo woo, but it's very helpful. The idea of walking barefoot on the earth, or cooking, or taking a shower, or doing things that or physical exercise, like getting into your body. Because what happens is I think we're sort of getting out of our body a little bit, and it ramps us up. And whenever we feel that way, we need to come back into our body and ground and really be centered in the earthly realm, right?
mhm,
But I do think that the idea that we have this purpose to fulfill is very true. And I think people often, when they're manic, and again, this is my interpretation, I don't want to put words into anybody else's mouth, but this is what it feels like for me, is that I had this purpose to write this book. And now I'm actually moving into doing mediumship, which is going to be connecting the loved ones, on the other side with people here in the earth plane and helping them heal family trauma.
mhm.
Kind of using my social work skills and my spiritual skills, I guess you could say, to help people. And so I knew in my heart, deep down, I had a purpose. I had a calling, like an actual calling, and I think we all have a calling, but for some people it's different. Like for me, it's definitely working in the spiritual realms, working in a therapeutic way with people. But I think for other people like yours, it sounds like music is definitely a big
Yeah.
passion of yours, and writing about music. So I don't know if you find, like, when you're maybe writing about something, you'll want to stay up all night and write about it because you're
Mhm.
so excited about it, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's funny. It's been with things like that, I feel like it gets what's the word? It gets labeled, but that's not stigmatized. It gets sort of classified as manic or crazy or whatever. And you know what? Like if somebody who's passionate but doesn't have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder can can, you know, work really hard, and people respect and value and appreciate that, right? So we don't
Mhm.
need to demonize it, but we need to also know, like, if you are up 3 nights in a row doing that, that's not healthy. You need your sleep. So you need to figure out ways to ground and slow down, you know, and be able to be in the earthly plane and not just focused on your purpose and your mission.
Mhm.
It's finding that, striking that balance, you know. And I haven't personally suffered much from depression. I've always been mania has been my you know, cross to bear, so to speak.
Mhm.
But with depression, I feel like it's when people feel like, my sense is that it's when they're disconnected from their purpose, and they're disconnected from who they truly are, and they're disconnected from feeling like they're, you know, a spiritual being. When they're disconnected from all of that, from others and from the spirit realms and from their purpose, I feel like that's when people get depressed. So like, if I'm not sure in your episodes, but I would wonder if your depressive episodes have come when you feel like you're not fulfilling your purpose, like when maybe something didn't go the way you wanted it to go with your writing, or you didn't get published, or, you know,
Mhm.
or something of, you know, or even if it was a relationship, maybe something didn't go well, then it
Yeah.
can sink you into a depression, because I feel like you're disconnected from, you know, your loved ones, and you're disconnected from your purpose,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so is my sense, but I haven't experienced it personally, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my first episode, you know, and I always use air quotes about mania and episodes and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm still navigating this, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still, um, you
I like
know,
the air quotes.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, my first episode, I was, before I became manic, I was extremely depressed because the relationship that I was in was falling apart.
Okay.
And I felt like he was growing distant and more distant and more distant. And I remember just crying and praying and crying and praying and just asking God for a thread and just asking him to like help somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything, like, I just like, it was just like a spiritual transformation. I just became at peace, and I was just like, you know, whatever will happen will happen. And
Mm-hmm.
then synchronicity started coming up for the first time that I'd ever experienced them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just became like, I remember I came home from New York to Texas for my grandmother's brother's funeral. And I was sitting in, well, I was like talking to my sister, and I was just talking to her in a way that I'd never spoken to her before. And she was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of looking at me like, what? But you
Mm-hmm.
know, I just felt like I had, like you were saying, messages to deliver. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were in the church during the funeral, and I just got like, I don't know if it was a voice in my head, but it was just kind of a message that was just instilled in me. And it was, you know, your purpose is to spread the word of God through music.
Okay.
And yeah, and that was like, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And ever since then, like, I've been like kind of trying to figure out how this episode and this message and these experiences all combine into who I am, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
what my purpose is. But yeah, I, you know, when I had I know that you are very uh intent on delivering the message of love, love, love. Like, that's
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
And when I had that initial episode, I you know, was up all night messaging people and just telling them that I love them, that we had to spread
Mm-hmm.
love. I
Mm-hmm.
probably messaged over 100 people that night. And then um a few days later, I actually long story short, it's a very long story,
Mm-hmm.
but I ended up I was picked up by the mental health police and taken to the hospital because I was like knocking on people's doors trying to save them, and they were just like, "What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And my family and my friends didn't know where I went, so I was missing for 36 hours.
Oh, wow.
So everybody kind of was like, "She just messaged me that she loved me. Like, what happened?"
Yeah.
And thankfully, they found me in the hospital, but yeah, it was a really, really wild time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know, it's not funny. Funny is not the right word, but it is, in some ways it is funny. Like, oh my God, I was going around knocking on doors and like
Yeah.
telling people I'm going to save them. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like some parts of it, some things I did, I do sort of laugh at it at the same
Yeah.
time. it's traumatizing. It's like, but you know, like you sort of look back and like and when I early on, I would cringe. I was so ashamed
Yeah.
of the behaviors and how could, because so when I had my first episode, I actually got fired from my job.
Oh, wow.
Because, and I mean, I've always been a very responsible person, you know, and
Mhm.
always been very whatever. And I was mortified. One that I, you know, had this breakdown and I was out of control, and two that I could actually have been fired from my job because of behaviors, you know. And there was nothing crazy that I did at my job, but they found out that I was hospitalized, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not having that," you know. So it was
Wow.
yeah, it was a new job that I had started. So anyway, but I'm getting off track. But so I feel like there's a lot of shame around our, and I don't know if this is true for you, but there's a lot of shame around our behaviors when we were confused. And I like to use the word confused a little bit, more so than manic and I don't know about depressed, but with manic, I feel like, you know, we do have a mission and purpose, and I feel like we're tapping into that. Like, you know, going telling people that you love them and wanting to help people are all wonderful and good things. It's just a matter of, you know, with not being grounded enough in the earthly realm, you
Mhm.
went knocking on doors, and it's like, wait a minute, no, we can't do that because people aren't going to be okay with that.
Mhm.
I need to find another way to spread my message of love and to help people. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's not like, you know, when you think about it, your underlying purpose was loving and generous and kind and thoughtful and nothing to be ashamed of. It's just a matter of the execution of it. Kind of like when you think about cooking, it just kind of fell, you know, like when cooking shows, it just kind of fell a little short, you know, because again, like with the energy idea, I didn't understand this. My husband is a very kind of technical, mechanical kind of person,
Mhm.
and he was explaining to me about lightning rods. Do you know about lightning rods?
Mm-mm, not at all.
No. So, I mean, I don't know all the details, but essentially, like lightning is such a strong force of energy, right? And if lightning strikes something, they will put a rod so the lightning will strike the rod and then it goes into the earth and dissipates. The energy
Mhm.
has to have a place to go. And
Yeah.
like, I feel like when we are tapping into these etheric realms, we just are taking in like a lightning bolt, and we're just, you know, like I do this because it's just
Mhm.
like it's spinning. You can feel
Yeah.
it, right? You know what I'm talking about. People
Yeah.
who experience this know this. It's just this energy, and it feels glorious because you just feel like you're on top of the world, and I can do
Mhm.
anything. And in some sense, that's true, because when we're connected with the divine, we align with the power of God, and we can do whatever we choose to do. But if we're not grounded, that energy starts just going haywire in us and mess it. It's like it's short circuiting. It's kind of like if you imagine a house, you know, gets hit by lightning, everything short circuits, and that's what's
Mhm.
happening. Versus if we're grounded and we're letting that energy kind of dissipate, and we say, okay, we're taking the messages and we're going to figure out a logical and healthy way to bring them into the world, right?
Mhm.
um, so yeah, so and I'm not super versed in grounding. Like there's probably lots of research you could do, but I definitely feel like for people that are manic, and I know for me over time, you know, finding ways to stay earthly when I
Yeah.
feel that way, to say, okay, yes, there are these messages and there's this, you know, word I want to spread, but I need to take a break and not do it right this second. Like there's
Exactly.
this urgency. And so
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to work on knowing, yes, because it feels like, and what I've learned actually in writing the book, I think it was in writing the book or in some of my channeling, is that it's because we don't trust that everything is in God's hands and that God has everything taken care of for us. We feel the pressure that we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to, you know, spread the message, you know, messages through music in your example. Or for me, I needed to, you know, I needed to write, you know, and so yeah, so but they tell me that, you know, the time is sort of an earthly creation, you know, and that that everything is in God's hands and it will unfold in the correct divine timing. And if
Mhm.
we try to do things to be grounded and recognize that we don't need to rush about it. There's no urgency, that we can get our messages out there and do our purpose and live our lives the way we want to live them, but in a more easy way. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So when did you kind of transition between understanding your experiences as this is a condition, this is pathological, this is very, very, this is a diagnosis versus this is, in some ways a gift, or this is me being sensitive, or this is me
Mhm.
being what have you? Like, when did you kind of make that transition?
Yeah, so it started in 2017 when I started learning about guides and angels and this retreat that I went on. And then I started, I took a lot of spiritual coursework that really helped me open up to understand that that I wasn't crazy, that there was that I was sensitive. So again, it started in 2017, and so I had sessions with Emma Bragdon, who is a
Mhm.
transpersonal psychologist, and has done a lot of writing on spiritual emergence. So she helped me. And then there's a woman named Andrea Largent, who was my spiritual therapist, who I worked with, who again first did this group to help me, help us connect with the unseen realms. And she's also a medium. And actually, I think she may have trained under Maladama Some.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think she went to some courses of his, but I'm not entirely certain. Anyway, I did that. I took some courses through Sarah Wiseman. She has some online courses called Intuition University, learning to connect with my intuition and sort of develop kind of psychic type of skills. So I
Hmm.
took 2 semesters in the fall of 2018 and the spring of 2019. And then I took a psychic development course with a woman in Unionville, Pennsylvania. It was like a 6 or 8 week course. Again, kind of learning to tap into your intuition and get messages and things like that. And then I can't remember exactly when I started it. I guess it was January of 2019. I took a 22-month angelic healer certification course with a woman named Karen Tumaz in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. And that's when I learned to connect to the angels. And quite frankly, so there was that. And that was really what started opening up my path for me. And in my book, I talk about the nature of angels is the second chapter, the second section, and it's the pathway back to God. And it's with connecting with the angels. They are sort of the GPS. You're the guides on your route. So with connecting with the angels, they will help you connect with mentors, with spiritual teachers, with healers, with like the other part is the trauma therapist that I worked with. I did something called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It's a particular kind of trauma therapy.
Hmm.
And so I was able to kind of clear out all that old trauma stuff. And so it was really through the spiritual courses and the trauma therapy, that I started to get clear on what happened.
Hmm. Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you know how to like seek the right people and the right resources.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. And my friend Christina says that I'm actually like I'm a resource queen, and I am a very much a resource queen. But I actually do attribute that to the angels. Like I feel like the angels are always working with all of us. But when you ask for help, they can create more synchronicities and put people in your path that can help you and help you with healing if you're open to it. So I feel like there's been a lot of angelic healing in addition to the therapeutic, like the traditional earthly therapy. I feel like there's been a lot of kind of energy healing with my connection with the angels.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, everyone has free will, so the angels can't interfere with your free will. But if you ask them to guide you on your path, and to open up, like, to say, I want to heal, and open up doors for me to meet the right people that I'm meant to, to help me heal, that I'm meant to meet, then things will start, to kind of, they tell me it's like a high-speed train. Like, they're always with you. Like if you could be taking a regular train, the angels are always with you and they're riding with you on the train. But if you say, angels, help me do this, they're like, okay, we're jumping over to the high-speed train and we're going to
Mhm.
get there a lot faster,
Okay.
yeah. So the angels have been really helpful to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm still like finding the words and the ways of connecting to the angels. I when I was having my experience this most recent time in October, I met someone named Protomano, and he helped me. He like took me to this. It was kind of like a bookstore, but it was also like it had like crystals, and like I got like
Mhm.
an
Yeah,
yeah, like an angel stone, I think it's called.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there were like I saw books about Mary Magdalene, and I noticed that you put one of the resources in there about what is it?
Mary
Uh,
Magdalene Revealed, which I
Revealed.
actually I need to still I put it on there even though I haven't read the book because they told me I'm going to read it. I haven't read it yet because they're telling me I'm not quite ready yet. But
Mhm,
so I'm not sure what's in there that I whatever. But I understand. Yeah, there was something I saw a video. Anyway, I won't get too off track. But something
mhm.
called Gnosis with
Oh
GNOS,
yeah.
and the idea of the knowing is within us.
Mhm.
That people think you need to go external to like a spiritual advisor, and yes, religions and spiritual advisors can help us gain understanding and knowledge, but
Mhm.
ultimately the answers to the questions that are the deepest ones for us are within us, and so it's
Yeah,
by going within that we get those answers. Yeah.
for sure. So why do you think like westernized society is so like hesitant about accepting the fact that this may be that you know a bipolar manic episode could be spiritual? Like why do you think that there's such a break and disconnect?
Hmm. I'm not sure. What's coming to me now is my sense that we have always felt like medicine solves everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we feel like I think about my own experience, and I was trusting the experts to know what to do. And I think we're very scientific.
Yeah.
We want to do things that have an order, and we want to do things that have research behind it. We're so, I think, focused on the facts. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? That I feel
Yeah.
like yeah, that I feel like, and we've been so focused on medication as the answer to everything. And again, I don't want to come across that I'm dissing medication, because medication was very helpful for me for a long time. I think for some people it's required for a period of time. Although I feel like once people do understand, and I wrote about this in my book, once people do understand the root causes of their illness and their traumas and process their traumas, that there is a possibility that they may not need medication, but they would need to, you know, do that safely. Like I see a holistic psychiatrist, somebody who can, you don't just taper off slowly, which is what psychiatrists will tell you to do, just taper off slowly. But your whole body chemistry and the energy all needs to be adjusted. So there's
Mhm.
more to it than just tapering your meds. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, but I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. Your
No
question.
worries.
But
Uh,
about the Western culture, yeah. I don't know. I feel like also we're very disconnected spiritually. Like I feel like for many, like I think religion was kind of forced down a lot of people's throats, and it was something that a lot of people didn't agree with or didn't feel settled with, and so they just kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater and
yeah.
said, we don't want any parts of that. And so I do feel like now people are starting to open up to the idea that spirituality can be helpful and can be an important part of our lives, and is very crucial to our mental health,
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a break that's coming, that people are starting to be more aware of it. But there's a long road ahead for
Yeah.
sure. So I don't know. I just feel like we've always just been so focused on science and facts, and and things that are a little bit more from your heart and
Yeah.
from how you feel, and more the medical field thinks that's a little too loosey goosey.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but coming from having a master's degree in social work, yes, we look at science and evidence-based practices and things like that, but I think we also realize there's an art to it, and we know that, like, for example, healing comes in the relationship. like good therapists will tell you that the healing comes, yes, from the techniques, but
Mhm.
from the relationship that you build with the client, or together. And if there's a safe space where somebody can open up and share their feelings and be their true selves, and the therapist can help navigate them to feel whole again. um, yeah, so there's definitely more, so there's an art to it. And I feel like particularly social workers, I definitely, I'm not a psychologist. I just feel like psychiatrists are so focused on medication that they aren't looking at the artistic side of,
Mhm.
that it's not just science, there's an art to it as well,
For sure. Yeah, definitely. So I want to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier, the concept of like Christ consciousness.
Okay.
And are you familiar with Paramahamsa Yogananda?
It's interesting, a little bit, not a lot. I have not read Autobiography of a Yogi, as I think,
Mhm.
right? I've not read that book. It was recommended to me. In fact, Emma Bragdon is the one who introduced me to him.
Mhm.
But no, I'm not super familiar. No.
Okay. I've read, like, he has like tiny little self-help books. I've read a couple of those, but I was so interested in him that I was just kind of Googling and YouTubing as much as I could find.
Hmm.
And he has a book called The Second Coming of Christ. And he
Okay.
talks about how it's not like the actual physical return of Jesus, but it is Jesus rising up within us,
Hmm.
and the wavelength and the vibrations that we feel, as we connect to each other. And I thought it was so interesting because you wrote the exact same thing in
And
your
I
book.
don't I don't know him. Yeah, that's funny.
Exactly. Isn't
Wow.
that interesting? Yeah. I was like,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. And it just kind of solidified for me that the sensations and the experiences that I've had where I feel like I am Jesus, I can easily like flip that into, oh, it's just a connectivity of consciousness. It's not
Yeah.
exactly like I am the one, which
Yes.
is very hard to like separate that from yourself.
Yes.
But yeah, just understanding that, it is a different type of Jesus coming into our lives.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's they had told me that it's Jesus is coming into our minds to heal them, like heal the split, the separation, the ego versus the divine self, and not versus, it's like it's not in opposition, but yeah, yeah. That's pretty wild. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. That's
Of
really
course.
cool.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to ask, I don't often see people mention a divine mother.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was just curious, like, and I also saw that you mentioned that like you don't have to be a Christian to find reconciliation through Jesus.
Hmm.
So how does the divine mother factor into like our relationship with God? Like, is there a hierarchy? Is it like side by side? Like, can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so I'm still working that out through some of my channeling. I'm still learning, so I want to be completely honest. Like, that's the part that actually is a little bit most confusing to me too,
Hmm.
because we've always grown up with this idea of God as the Father, right?
Hmm.
So what I understand, what I think I understand is that that Mother, Father, God are a masculine and a feminine energy that are sort of one energy, I think, of love. It's just that the mother energy is of nature and is of the earth. So she's kind of the grounded energy. And then father, the masculine energy is more sort of etheric and heavenly and yeah, kind of. I'm not sure if it's higher, more highly vibrating. I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure. But the idea is that they both support and love and nurture us. And actually, the blog that I just wrote this maybe last week, I think it was, is The Way of Nature and the Way of Grace. I don't know if you had read that one.
Not yet.
Yeah, but the idea is that the Divine Mother is the way of nature, which means we have to learn from our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we make and mistakes are not like, you know, you can call them sins, but it's the idea, it's not to be so judgmental. It's simply the idea that when we choose things that are not loving, when we choose to not love others and not love ourselves, and we make decisions that are hurtful, then we need to have other experiences that will help us come to grow an understanding that that is not how we want to behave.
Mm-hmm.
So the way of nature is, like, people will talk about karma, the idea that you have to sort of, like, what goes around comes around kind of thing, but it's not in a sense of punishment. It's not to hurt us or to what's the word, to retribution. It's not that we've been bad and so we need to be disciplined. It is more so that we need to learn from our mistakes so that we can grow. And
Yeah.
so the divine mother is the energy that kind of makes sure we are learning as we go along, whereas the way of the father is the way of grace, which is no matter what we do, we're always going to be loved and cherished, and yeah, kind of, we can do no wrong in Father God's eyes. And not that the divine mother feels like we do wrong, it's just that she's there to make sure that we learn again, how to be loving and kind,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
that's the piece that I understand. And in my book, I talk about the separation, which again, I'm still trying to integrate all of it. But there's this idea that the whole purpose of our human existence is that at one point we were all connected with God,
Mm-hmm.
and Mother, Father, God, and all of us, all the individual souls. And Neil Donald Walsh wrote about this in Conversations with God, the idea of kind of like, imagine a sun, and we're like each of us are like a little bit of the sun. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the sun, if you're light, all you see is light around you, and you don't understand contrast. Like, you just know beauty and love and compassion and kindness and forgiveness and all of these wonderful traits.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really understand it fully because you've never felt the opposite. You've
Yeah.
never had sadness and grief and despair and pain and shame. You've never had those experiences. So they created this, you know, the world that we're in now, for us to experience what they say contrast, the negative side of energy. So
Mm-hmm.
for us to have these alternate experiences where we would actually come to know our true selves, our true light. Because when you're if all you've ever known is your goodness, you don't really know it fully if you don't understand the opposite, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we're here to experience the joy and the beauty and the goodness, which is of course part of the earthly life, but also the opposite, so that we understand fully the depth of what it means to have joy and beauty and goodness, because we've experienced what it's like to not have joy and beauty and goodness.
Yeah.
So, so it's very esoteric, I think is the word. I don't even, yeah, it's just, it's kind of hard to get your arms around a little bit. Like, you know, I'm kind of a concrete person. So for me, it's very, like, I never understood like how the universe works in physics. I find that stuff just way over my
Yeah.
head. So when I'm channeling this stuff, it's very, kind of hard to put in earthly terms, you know? So, but it does make sense to me that yes, we would want to experience our full selves, and to have the opposite of, you know, the loving experience, to understand ourselves more greatly, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I think it's really interesting, the analogy that you just said, of like being a part of the sun and like being a piece of the sun, and like gosh, I forget his name. Eckhart Tolle. He has one of his many, many speeches where he speaks about like popping out of the hole and experiencing life, and then popping back in, and then popping out and popping back in
Mm-hmm.
into the whole, the puzzle. I've also heard you speak about it as a puzzle. And yeah, I recently saw some artwork that Carl Jung created when he wrote the Red Book. And there was one in particular where it was just kind of like the circular puzzle, and it immediately reminded me of my most recent episode that I had. I don't tell very many people this because it's kind of like very out there, but I feel like you might understand. Yeah, it was very much like I remember feeling like I was a part of this normal world or whatever, and then it kind of felt like I was on a I was in the hospital, and I was like kind of spinning up and up and up and up,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like I was on a literal roller coaster, just like ticking up, and then I just kind of exploded into this new realm where I had never been before. There were no people,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that I was a part of something, and I knew that I
Mm-hmm.
was a part of some system, some divine system,
Mm-hmm.
like a cog, not like a cog in a negative sense, but just like an element that
Mm-hmm.
belonged.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember feeling like I was moving, like I describe it as a clock, just like
Mm-hmm.
a clock that's like the ultimate clock of all humanity and all creation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of moving with it. And I remember feeling so excruciatingly overwhelmed, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Just feeling like I had never been so in tune before.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would never get out of it. I thought I was stuck there forever. And it was fun. Not fun, but it was like it was where I was supposed to be, but it wasn't where I was supposed to be forever.
Yeah.
So I popped out and I got off the roller coaster, and then that's kind of when things become a little hazy. And I remember, being given a shot and then being taken
Yeah.
to the hospital, the actual ward that I was going to stay in for the next several weeks. So yeah, it was just like, so when I hear you say like it's a puzzle, or it's like you're a part of this thing and you're just one element, like that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know if you journal about your experiences at
I
all.
do, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely encourage that because what I have found is I will come across things now that I had journaled about when I was in the hospital or when I was having my experiences. I like it that you call them experiences instead of episodes, but when I was having, those experiences, I I would write things down, and when I go back now, I realize like some of that was stuff that was in that's now in my book,
Mhm,
or is like it's so at the time it was again kind of jumbled that lightning energy that had it just needed to be grounded because it was a little confused,
mhm.
but there were real messages in there, and so when you're in it you can't quite fully understand. But I would definitely, if you haven't written this down, I don't know, my memory is not as good now with the medication. I feel like has affected my memory. Um,
Yeah.
so I would definitely encourage you to write this down because I would venture to bet at some point you're going to actually make kind of logical sense about how that fits into your life at some point. Do you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I'm a big journal
Yeah.
person. I have like 10 of them at this point, and they're all like, some of them, like I remember looking back like, what is this? And then like sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, I know what this means.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great bit of advice.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and even if it doesn't make sense, it may not make sense now, but I would, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Okay. We have about, I'm assuming we have about an hour's worth of time, so we have like 5 minutes left.
yeah, and I'm flexible. I don't know how your time is, but
Oh
like if
yeah, I'm
yeah,
flexible
it's fine.
too. Okay.
I just scheduled an hour because that's what I figured. Whatever. But if we go over, I'm really enjoying talking to you. Yeah.
Great, me too. Yeah, I wrote down so much, so I'm like, well, how can I get through all of this? But I think I've made my way through most of it, but I just have a few more things I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
so
take
yeah,
your time. I'm in no rush.
thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. So I saw that you wrote, or it was channeled to you, that souls have reincarnated together, or have incarnated together for a similar purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and they reveal themselves as your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really believe that. I have at least two people in my life who we just kind of magnetized and like found each other, and we all believe the same thing, and we're just trying to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have people in your life who have kind of like orbited around you?
Yes, for sure. And actually, it's funny, your tribe comes to you when you start to be your true self, is my understanding. And so the more like you're probably starting, and maybe it was a journey for you to start to open up about your history. And it's
Yep.
probably when you started opening up about your history that these people came into your life. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's what happens. That's what happens for all of us. And we all crave a tribe. We all want a tribe. And it's I think part of the reason why, people feel so disconnected is because they don't have their tribe and they don't realize that like they put on these masks and they don't want to be their true selves so they can be liked and loved and appreciated, but they don't realize that if they are their true selves, that's when they get liked and loved and appreciated for who they
Mm-hmm.
truly are. And the tribe will come in because they're your people. They're
Yeah.
gonna say, wow, she's as weird and as crazy and as wonderful as I am. And like you're just gonna connect, you know. So as far as my tribe, yes, I have a lot of several spiritual mentors and people who are sort of into kind of the spiritual stuff for sure have definitely revealed themselves as my tribe. And then there's other people that are just kind of grounded and very earthly who I'm thinking of a dear friend of mine who just listened to me when I was going through my kind of remembrance of my traumatic experiences. And she's not really, she's a spiritual person, but she doesn't really talk about it very much. So it's not that we are connecting around my spiritual stuff. It's more so that she is just a really good listener, you know, and so I was able to reveal kind of, you know, some of my personal stories to her, and she just listened and validated how I felt, you know, and that, yeah. So, yeah. And I just am thinking, I get a little teary just thinking about, you know, how alone I felt when these traumatic memories started to come back. It was very scary.
Yeah.
And just having someone, you know, again, my therapist, but also a friend, just someone to sort of listen and validate that it's, you know, your feelings are normal. And I feel like with the spirituality, the same thing. When I feel like I think I'm having a spiritual awakening, but I don't know what's happening. Everybody else is telling me I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then when they tell me, no, you're not, like I have another dear friend who is a Reiki master and owned a shop that had crystals and things like that, which I want to get back to that in a second. But she's like, you know, you're not crazy and you need to stop using that word, you know, because I would say I feel like I'm crazy. And even in my book, I write about, like, all throughout my book, I'm like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm being manic, I'm not sure if I'm being grandiose, like, you know, like those, it's almost like being, I think I had said this in my book, it's like an abusive relationship. When you're in it, you feel like you must be wrong because everybody's, you know, you've been told over and over again these messages. And like when we're in the psychiatric world, we're told over and over again these messages that you're bipolar, you're manic, you know, you need to take meds, you need to, you know, whatever you need, whatever they tell us. And yes, I'm getting off track again, sorry. But
Oh no, please, you're fine.
yeah, but yeah, so my tribe. So just having people to validate for me, and like Emma Bragdon, you know, when I would see her, she'd be like, you know, Michelle, you're, and she would say this. I didn't believe her at first. She would say, you're sensitive. And I'm like, I'm not a person, like I never grew up as a kid who had spirits and ghosts and, you know, like, you know, I always thought that people who had the ability to connect with the spirit realms must have been born with it and must have grown up with it, you know, or they experienced things when they were kids. I never had any experiences when I was a kid that I recall. But what I have come to learn is that you can learn how to make these connections, you know, and I love the Maladama Some's stuff about how when you're in like a tribe in Africa, if you start having these experiences, they say, oh, this is a healer, and we need to help them develop and help them get through this so they can, because they know that we have an amazing gift to share, you know, with the tribe or with the world, you know. So yes, so it's kind of interesting now thinking of the nuance of our tribe being the people who surround us being called a tribe, and like African tribe, like I'm just making that connection. Yes, that I think, yeah, I'm not sure, you know, that I don't know if there's, I had heard that sometimes that these, that our sensitivity runs sort of in our familial line.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you have shamanic history in your family or.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. My brother is also bipolar. My grandmother is bipolar and or schizophrenic. So my family is definitely like, there's something like that. I think our history.
Generational.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that recently, and that really rings true to me. And I'm not sure who in my family. I think my mother had said on my grandmother's side that we have some Native American history, but I'm not. We had our DNA, and it wasn't really showing up clearly, so I'm not really sure. But I'm wondering if I might have some Native American heritage, you know. But I don't know. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a part something that I always, every time I have an episode, or even like when I'm hypomanic, again, air quotes,
Mhm.
um, I always get the sense that I'm going to be famous, and not a celebrity, but like the things that I'm going to do will help people to the point that my name will be known.
Mhm.
Um, and I read, in the excerpt that you sent, that the angel said, it's not about money or celebrity. Your heart's desire was and is to help people and to live your own authentic life. This will happen. Just remember, when the fame and fortune comes, stay grounded in the earth and only keep what you need. So that was really special to me because
Oh.
I've always I don't like the idea of celebrity. I think it's very
Mhm.
flawed,
Mhm.
and I think we exalt people who don't need to be exalted, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just the concept of like separating fame and celebrity was like very, very poignant for me.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I still, they still keep telling me that, like, I'm going to be some big deal. And it sounds like you're already a bit of a big deal. You're with NPR and Billboard and Rolling Stone. That's pretty awesome,
Thank
sharing
you.
your gifts with the world in that way. So it sounds like you're already, kind of having fame in the way that you want to have it. So,
Yeah.
you're kind of behind the scenes sharing stories that are important to people. So that's really great. And I'm not sure, they tell me I'm going to be speaking and talking and I'm going to have big audiences. And at first I was like, you got to be crazy. Like, that is like, who's going to want to listen to me,
Many people.
Yeah, but it's funny as I am coming more into my true self. I don't feel like it's egotistical. Like they give you that again. That's another label is grandiosity. This
Yeah.
idea that we're grandiose if we think we're going to be famous or we're going to make big impacts. And I think or that we have a connection with God. They tell us we're grandiose with that. But you know what? What I've channeled is that every person can have a connection with God, that it's not grandiose to think that.
Mhm.
Especially because it's not that it's not that I'm special to have this gift. Everybody has this gift. It's just a matter of learning to tune in and tap into it, right? So there's not grandiosity in that. I think grandiosity is feeling like you are more special than everybody else in the world, and I don't feel that way. I just feel like I have gifts to bring. And if there's, some, I'll just, again, sort of the classism, racism, whatever, thinking about like if there's just some middle-aged white man who says he's going to make $1 million by some invention, like nobody questions him, they think,
Mhm.
sure, you can do that. But,
Yeah.
yes, but some little old, me from Delaware, that says, oh yeah, I'm going to write books and, change the world. Like people think I'm crazy, but anyway, yeah. So who knows?
Right.
But
Ugh, it's crazy. Okay, so I I saw that there was, and again, this is just, you have a whole book. Like the only part that I read is very small,
yeah.
but the things that I read, I very much connected to. So, I saw that you wrote about women feeling differently in their worthiness or their connectivity, so to speak. Um, that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting because I feel like as a woman, especially as a black woman, especially as a black woman who lived and lives in poverty, I feel a lot of things on a scale that, like for example, the piece that I wrote, I interviewed all kinds of people about their experiences, and there was one particular person. He's a white male from Indiana, and he's great. He's super smart. He taught me a lot, but there were some things that I just couldn't connect with him on.
Mm-hmm.
There were some things that he assumed were more of like, how do I explain it? He just kind of gets more into like the meta of like, oh, like it's this concept, and it's like he was very conceptual,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I was more so just like I feel this and I connect with this level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's like something that has to do with like me being a woman,
Yeah.
yeah, or if that's just kind of like we have different experiences and he's more of like a heady kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting that part that I channeled. I remember my editor reading, like, can you explain more about this? And I thought, I really don't quite understand it, So I had kind of a hard time with that a little bit because sometimes, like with the writing, I would get channel messages, and again, because I'm still learning, to channel everything. And so when we were editing it, I would be like, no, this doesn't seem to quite make sense. I don't think I got that right.
Mhm.
So that's a piece when she questioned me about it. I really wish maybe now that it's a little while later, because I channeled that last year, maybe
Mhm.
I'll channel about that again a little bit more to try and get more information. But I mean, it makes sense to me that we as women sometimes, yeah, yeah, feel more unworthy, I guess because of the culture and society we've grown up in, that
Mhm.
we have been sort of told that, we can't do things that men can do,
Mhm.
and so it's sort of reinforced. So I'm not sure if it's this whole idea that it's been reinforced that, you know, we're not good enough. I don't know. So that's
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to make a note about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would like to revisit that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just a few more things, actually just a couple things. Um, oh yeah. I saw in your resources that you had The Universe Has Your Back,
Yes.
your book. I bought the journal when I went to I was telling you about my friend who took me to like the store, the bookstore, whatever. I bought that journal when I was there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like when I saw that you have listed it as a resource. I haven't read the book, but I do have the journal with all the little messages on each page, and it just like it fit perfectly with what I was feeling at that
That's
time.
funny. And I
Uh,
back
yeah,
to the crystals. I wanted you.
yeah,
The angels they keep getting us back to this for me to tell you. Crystals are part of what the angels guide you to for healing. I don't know what you know about crystals. I don't really know that much about each of their individual properties, but what I have learned, and as part of my healing journey, is that the angels would guide me, and somehow or another, somebody would give me a gift of a crystal, or I would go to a store and be drawn to a crystal. And so they actually have. I guess maybe they can be grounding and they can be healing. They have like an energetic frequency, I think, that comes off of them. And for those, if anybody ever listens to this, whatever, but I'm not a crystal healer, so I don't know the specifics. But I do know that crystals have been part of my healing journey, that they would come into my path. Like when I needed grounding, I would get a grounding type of crystal. And like right now, whatever, these are, a friend gave these to me. These are Archangel Gabriel crystals, and like these little pearls, like different things I'll be drawn to. So I would encourage you and other people that if they see crystals or gemstones they feel drawn to having, to carry them in their pocket or to leave them nearby, because they are part of, they help you to ground and to heal.
for
So
sure. Thank you. Yeah, I keep it's like the one that I have. It's like maybe this big, and I keep it in my purse. It's a very long purse. It's like perfect for it. Yeah, I keep it in my purse all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that about the journal. Um,
Yeah, but so back to this, the synchronicities too with
yeah,
that. Like, you felt drawn to get that journal, and now you see it, and so that the likelihood is that there are messages in that book for you, and
yeah,
the idea, like I remember when I was first diagnosed, I would say, oh, there's messages in music for me,
mhm,
like
yeah.
songs were talking to
Oof,
me.
yes.
Songs were talking to me. And they would tell me, like, songs aren't talking to you, whatever. But now that I've taken this angelic healer certification, they say, yes, angels talk to you in music all the time. And it's like, now it's kind of cool. I listen, I'm like, oh, those are angels talking to me. That's so awesome,
I know that's
Yeah,
a major part for me, especially as someone who is borderline obsessed with music.
yeah,
I experience a lot of synchronicities through music,
yeah,
and it's the most incredible thing. Like, there's
yeah.
nothing like it, and it's like it's almost to the point where like life is boring when like I'm not experiencing that, but I'm also trying to be like it's okay. Like I don't have to have that happen all the time,
Yeah.
but when it does happen, it's like the most fulfilling thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
especially, yeah. I mean, and it's funny. I've always been such a music lover too, just to have that connection with the music and to know it's a divine connection. In fact, in my book, I think it was in my book, they told me that music is inspired. that essentially all music is sort of channeled, like it comes from divine inspiration, and that the messages in the music are not only healing for the person who's writing the music, but they're messages to help other people heal too. Like it's almost like the person who's writing it knows they're being called to help someone else.
Mm.
They're sort of
Wow.
connecting. It's sort of that again, that collective consciousness level, is this idea that it's they yeah, that's being inspired to help themselves and other people heal. So yeah.
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 Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I know for me, it's whenever I have more heightened experiences, I it feels like music is talking to me. It feels like movies are talking to me.
Yeah.
It feels like
Yeah.
everything is talking to me.
Yes.
And that's something that I want to explore on a deeper level because I feel like at its core, whenever I'm like super, super up there, I feel like everything is about like God and
Mm-hmm.
everything is about how we have like created things in order to like communicate with him and him to communicate with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, in that like it's very, very interesting because like it gets to the point where like I'll like I remember being at work one time and I had to write a piece about like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and like the whole thing just felt like it was about God, and I was like, oh, I need to take a break. Like I need to take a break from work. And yeah, so it's just really interesting that it can feel as if everything that we are ingesting and taking in can just feel like, okay, it's on that wavelength of like
Mm-hmm.
everything is connected, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let me just, if you can give me oh yeah, duh, I wrote this at the very top. I've been like working through the whole thing. But yeah, so I also watched the video about your book launch. I
Oh,
just wanted to like prepare for everything.
yeah.
And
Thank you for doing
I
all this research. That's great. Yeah.
yeah, I this is what makes me happy. Like this is
Yeah.
the thing that I want to like help other people better understand.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, but you read out of the book, I believe, about like, this is the end of the world as we know it. This is a time for rebirth.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear you speak a little bit more about that because I I have felt as if like things are ending, but not in a very dramatic, apocalyptic way, but
Yeah.
in a like all that all that shit is old,
Yeah.
so to speak, and like now it's time to like rebuild in a new way. So if you could just kind of speak to
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Just that, yeah, we've been living out of alignment. We have been living not as our true selves and not fulfilling our purpose. We have been, living, doing jobs to kind of make ends meet, and we have
Yeah.
been, behaving in ways not taking care of ourselves, not taking care of each other, not taking care of the planet, and and so they tell me, again, it's the time of the revelation, the idea that like, so we had this sort of grand experiment, like I was saying, remember we were all this lights, this part of God, and we created this world to have these alternate experiences, and now what they're saying is, okay, we've had enough experience now, like, and so they've also told me, so I don't know if you've read about, there's something called the Akashic Records, which is also known
Mm.
as God's Book of Remembrance.
Okay.
So every thought, word, and deed that we have ever experienced is tracked in this Akashic Records, which is God's Book of Remembrance. And so essentially, like, there's enough information in this big book of remembrance, which is an energetic frequency, but in our terms, imagine it this enormous encyclopedic book that
Hmm.
has all the experiences that we have all as souls ever experienced. And so it's enough. Like, we've been through the wars, the famine, the disease, the social ills, the sexual trauma, the poverty, the whatever. We have seen what we need to see. And God is saying, okay, now we're done. Like, we've been in the cocoon, we've been having all these experiences, and now it's time for the caterpillar to sort of dissolve and for us to emerge as a butterfly and to live in peace and harmony and joy and love. And yeah, that we've been through it,
Yeah.
we yeah. And And so what I'm getting also is that it's a process. So right now it's kind of like now we're in the labor, like
Mhm.
of the childbirth. I'm not sure exactly how a caterpillar emerges into a butterfly. I'm not sure that what actually happens. I'm not sure of that analogy, but like I know about childbirth. And so it's
Mhm.
kind of like, we had been preparing to be parents and all that kind of stuff, and had the baby in the womb, and we've been growing the baby, and
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, now it's time to go through the birth. And that's
Yeah.
what's happening now. That's why things are a little bit chaotic. We got the, COVID-19 coronavirus thing. We have all the, racial unrest. But again, this darkness coming to light, all this stuff, and the idea that we've been living lives that aren't in alignment with who we truly are, and what our purpose is. And again, not to force spirituality or religion on anyone, but the idea that, we've sort of lost our connection to that, and more so to who we truly are, which again, my understanding is that God is within us. And so if we aren't being who we truly are, then we're sort of keeping God out of the world. We're not
Yeah.
allowing God into the world, right? We're not allowing the light into the world.
Yeah.
And so now we're sort of in the darkness of the birth canal, like
Yeah.
all this kind of shit's happening. But what's going to happen is the birth is going to happen, and then it's going to be amazing and beautiful. But it's going to be a process of transformation. There's going to be some pain, which is what we're going through now.
Yeah.
So, but the idea is like, if you're, and I don't know your circumstances, but if you ever become a parent, the whole idea is, you go into it knowing that you're going to go through this difficult labor, possibly difficult labor, but you go into it with open eyes and say, okay, I'm going to do this because I want to come out the other side and have the experience of being a parent. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like us as souls. We said, okay, we want to go through all this struggle and turmoil, which is hard for us to believe. We would say we want to go through this kind of struggle and turmoil, but we did. We said we want to go through this so that
Mhm.
we can come out the other side and um, know ourselves and have this greater, deeper understanding of, each other and ourselves and love and, all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting, the part about well, all of that's interesting, but especially the part where you talk about we chose to to have these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that like I can't reconcile with. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, why would I choose this, you
Yeah.
know? But I do understand that like I do have free will,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm extraordinarily grateful for that. Like, and that's something that I kind of understand in the sense of like I can't just live like on the Christ consciousness wavelength all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because like that just means that like all I want to do, which is true, all I want to do is serve God and like help, make manifest of his light. But that would essentially be like him taking away our free will in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
just like swooping us up into the state and like having us all be like happy, which I would be fine with. But
Mm-hmm.
like it's like we have to find our way to that point. We can't
Mm-hmm.
just like exist there from jump, like out of the womb, and then we live our whole lives like that. Like we wouldn't learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anywho,
Yeah.
so I saw also that you wrote that you don't need to be a Christian to, find your way to God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I had my first episode, that was a very strong message that I got. I
Okay.
remember writing down like every type of religion and just being like, it's all the same. Like,
Yeah.
just gotta find your own path. So,
Mm-hmm.
were you raised in a particular setting, or have you always kind of felt kind of open about your spirituality?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my family was not religious.
Mhm.
So yeah, we didn't go to church when I was younger, and then I did go to vacation Bible school when I went to my grandparents at a Methodist church when I was little. And then when we moved I was born in Mississippi, lived in Florida and Georgia, and then grew up primarily in Illinois from like fourth grade on. And when we were in Illinois in fourth grade, some people in the neighborhood were going to a local Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really, really drawn to go to church. And so my family would go sometimes, but for the most part, they didn't go. But my mother would actually drive me to church and drop me off because I had this very strong calling to go to.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting experience. And I was in the church choir and was in Bible studies and, all that kind of stuff. So I do have, some spiritual foundation or religious foundation in that sense. But, what came out in my episodes is that there was a lot of fear. And so it was definitely, religion, at least the Baptist church I grew up in was very fear-based. Like there's judgment and sin,
Yeah.
all this kind of, you know, ideas that we're bad at our core, and that we need or in need of healing and redemption. And so I took all those as a young child. I was very impressionable. I took all of those ideas in. And I think when I had my, experiences, I love that word as opposed to episodes. When I had my experiences,
Mm-hmm.
I think some of my fear was not only my childhood trauma, but I think that was a little bit of a trauma, that religious experience of
Yeah.
being told that I am a sinner and that I am I'm bad and I needed, all this, and that you're going to be judged and you're going to go to hell and, on and on and on. Like I definitely took it all in, hook, line, and sinker. And so
Yeah.
whenever I had my experiences, I was afraid, like, what about the devil? And is this, whatever, like it was just, yeah. So, so I would say I had it. So in some ways I liked the religious experiences in the sense that I liked the community of
Mhm.
connecting with people. And I loved that about religious institutions in the sense that they can create a sense of community, which I feel like is so needed and, in all of our lives. But I feel like the messages of, danger and fear, the messages of fear is the word. The fear messages I feel like are very hurtful and harmful to people.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
Okay.
also I think in particularly in today's culture, there's a lot of, and I don't want to bucket everybody all together, but the idea of the evangelical Christians who feel like, their way is the only way. And then they use the Bible to go against gay couples or
Yeah.
whatever. They use it for purposes that are not of love.
Yeah.
And so I have a real hard time with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny actually. They at some point I feel like I'm going to be writing more about Jesus, and at one point in the book, I don't know if it's in the book but it was Jesus wants his reputation restored
Hmm.
is what he told me. And
Mm.
that the idea that people are using his name in the wrong way, like his message was of love and peace and harmony and justice, very much about justice. Jesus was about, my understanding, for at least from the channeling I've done, is that he's kind of like a social worker. Like he believes in social justice and equality and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And the idea that people are using his name to oppress other people is very disturbing to him, is the sense that I get.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much everything for me. I wanted to ask one final thing, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but are you paying attention to Kanye West at all?
I had read a little bit of your article, although again, I'm not remembering. My memory is terrible. So once I read something, it kind of goes away and I
No
have to,
worries. Yeah.
take notes and read it again. So, yeah, so I know he's like running for president. He's been diagnosed with bipolar, or I guess that he sort of questions whether he has bipolar and other people
Yeah.
don't, right? Yeah. So I was wondering if we would talk about that today. I really don't know what's happening with him. My guess is, he's probably having spiritual experiences, but he probably has some trauma to process
Yeah.
that maybe he's not aware of. And this is actually very important to know. So I learned that when people repress memories, oftentimes they come back not until you're in your 40s and 50s,
Mm.
because the feelings of overwhelm from like the childhood experiences were just so dramatic that
Yeah.
your brain can't integrate it, and so just kind of squashes it down and takes it completely out of your memory. And it could happen younger, but it's when you're ready to actually deal with that trauma is when it will come to the surface for you, right? Or not for you, but for anyone, for us, when our bodies and our minds and our circumstances are in a place where we're ready to face it and work on it, that's when the memories will come back. Is my understanding. And so I'm not sure, what his circumstances are, what his childhood situations were, but my guess, and again, I don't like to guess because I don't want to say, but my guess is there's probably some childhood trauma that is unprocessed that, is kind of coming out. And again, my guess is he's probably having some spiritual experiences that are ungrounded. And so it's all kind of coming out a little confused, but I don't know, and so I don't know so I haven't read enough to really kind of make a true assessment of the situation or anything, but I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, I agree with you. I think that he is very likely having some spiritual experiences. When he first came out as bipolar and he was working on the album in which he put it on his cover, he said, "I hate being bipolar. It's awesome." And in the lead up to that, he was like posting on social media about like the process of making the album. And he wrote at the top of the track list that he was in the process of making Spiritual Awakening. So I think he's very aware of like the things that we're talking about. I just don't understand. Like at this point, he hasn't come out and said, "Hey, like I feel like I'm having a spiritual awakening. I feel like I've had these experiences that may not be ordinary, but that doesn't mean that I'm quote unquote crazy." He just kind of like holding it close to his chest because I think he is someone who thinks he's the chosen one. And I completely understand that because I felt it myself. So I really hesitate to like place blame on him or say, "Oh, he can't run for president," because I've made plans to run for president myself, especially when I'm manic. So, I feel like there are things that he's still processing, as you said, whether it's childhood trauma or, his mother passed away.
Okay.
His mother, when he was just starting to become very famous, his mother went to a cosmetic surgeon and she died under, the knife.
Wow.
And and now his wife is someone who goes under the knife often for her modifications. So I think there's something going on there. But in general though, I'm just kind of hopeful that people will at some point understand that this isn't just like a pathological thing. Like he could very well be experiencing something beyond what people are used to talking about. So that's at this point I'm still like kind of parsing it out, still trying to figure out like what this means and what it means for everybody, because if he comes out and explicitly says, "I have had spiritual experiences. I feel like I have conversed with God. I feel like I've conversed with angels," or whatever. I feel like if he were to come out and say that, so many other people like us would be able to like raise their hands and say, "Hey, me too." But I also don't want to like put all my eggs in one basket and say he's the one that should do it. So that's why I'm having these conversations.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do feel like, what's the word? There's a thing about people think a small group of citizens can't make a change, but indeed that's the only thing that has ever made a change. It's like or something, this whole idea. So, so I'm not sure I think it would be great if Kanye would come out and be an advocate, for helping people understand things a little bit better. But, I also see if he doesn't do that, that there's you and I and all the other people like us that are starting to have our voices heard.
Yes.
And so I feel like, if we do our part, then maybe that's enough, Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it is enough. I do.
Yeah.
So I think that's everything. Is there anything that you would like to add or ask?
No, I would love to mail you an autographed copy of my book, though, if you would like
That'd
it.
be amazing. I would love
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So you can, email me your address or whatever, and then I will get that in the mail to you. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, that's great. This has been really, really lovely. Like thank you for making me feel comfortable and at ease. And, it's funny. I feel like I'm very open in talking about my bipolar experiences now, my labeled bipolar
Yeah.
experiences now, my spiritual awakening. I feel like I'm very open about it. What I was scared about is, that I would say something stupid or that no or that not yeah or that honestly that I would feel uncomfortable because so my history is that my father was very authoritative and authoritarian, I guess, very, and so there's always a fear that if somebody is in a position of authority, which maybe you don't think of yourself as that, but I think of you as someone in a position of authority because, you really, could write whatever you want, really, you know what I mean? So you're sort of in a position of authority, and that just makes me a little bit uncomfortable that, I want to make sure that my meaning and my purpose and my intentions are, put forth in the right way, if that makes sense. And I feel like you're going to be very thoughtful about that. And here's a question. So do I get to review anything that you publish before it goes or no?
That's typically not how I work, but if you would feel more comfortable doing that, I can make an exception.
Okay. I mean, I guess the only thing, it's not, I guess I would just want to make sure that something isn't said that like I would be, as a social worker and a therapist, I always worry that words I say, I'm viewed as an expert. And
Hmm.
I would be concerned that something I might say would, like, for example, cause someone to go off their medication when they're not ready, or, something of that effect.
Hmm.
I guess, so if you would be willing to let me look at it, not, and I would try not, I wouldn't want to change anything. I would just want to make sure that nothing that I said would potentially influence someone in a way that would be detrimental to them. Does that make
For
sense?
sure. Yeah. If anything, I can send you the quotes that I will end up using.
Okay.
Yeah, I am still figuring out when exactly I'm going to be able to like make this into something because my schedule is like pretty full for the next few weeks. So it probably will be some time, but yeah, if anything, I can initially send you the quotes that I'm looking at, and then
Okay.
if you still would like to look further, then I can send you the complete piece.
Okay. That sounds great. Wow. It's really wonderful. Thank you for being so thoughtful and respectful. I appreciate that.
Of
So,
course. Thank you.
yeah. So, and if you have any other questions that, follow up, definitely reach out. We can always meet again or whatever. That's
Yeah.
fine. And yeah, and send me your address and I'll send you the
Yeah.
book.
I'll
And
make a note now. Send address.
yeah, I
I'm
know. I
so
have to,
excited.
yeah. And yeah, this has been great. So,
Yeah.
alrighty. Do you need me to send you? I did record this just because
Oh, great.
you want me to send you the recording or did you record it as well?
I recorded on audio, but I
Okay.
wouldn't mind having the video as well. So if
Okay,
you can send
great.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send it over. Okay.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Awesome. All right. Well, take care. It was so nice to see you and talk with you, and good luck on your journey.
Thank you. Good luck to you as well.
Okay. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.